Welcome back to Cards and Comics, guys. Today I have a new series of videos I'm going to start putting together called The Greatest Cards from the 90s That Never Were, or Never Were Made, if you want to put it that way. And this came about because I've started the process of collecting complete sets from the 90s. Mostly insert sets. I'm not going to put together base sets from the 90s, but insert sets are very cool, and the cool thing about them is you get a lot of great players from the 90s all at one time. So if I collected, a set that had Maddox, Bonds, Griffey, Thomas, it's cool to get all the great players all in one set. And if the design's amazing, it's great to see all those different players in the same design. Now, what happens sometimes, though, is when I look at the checklist of who's in the set, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And sometimes there's cards or players missing from the checklist that seem very obvious that should have been there. And this is sort of that series, is what cards could have been made if the checklist was done, let's say, more completely, or with time now that we have to look at who's great. There was some obvious misses back in the 90s. So we'll start right here with kind of the granddaddy of the insert set, the Topps Finest Refractors. Now, I know we had, elite cards and some other insert sets before this, but this really started the idea of these cards being very expensive, very rare, and being parallels, and it started Refractor. So it's a hallmark set, right? Now, it actually has a very good checklist. It has a lot of players that didn't have a lot of cards in the 90s in terms of high-end inserts. You've got George Brett, you've got Ozzie Smith, you've got Ricky Henderson, right? Players that sometimes don't appear in a lot of insert sets from the 90s. It has Nolan Ryan. In fact, the Nolan Ryan card is probably the most expensive refractor in the whole set, even today. So that's a pretty awesome set, but there's two cards I felt like could have been in the set. One's a little bit of a stretch, but the other one seems pretty reasonable. It could have been the set. So first it was Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez did pitch in 92. He was a very celebrated rookie. In fact, he had rookie cards back in 91. I think 91 Upper Deck Final was one of his rookie cards. So again, it wouldn't have been weird to see his card in 93. He only pitched in 2 games, but he did pretty well. And, it felt like if you were going to insert a young player rookie card like they did with Mike Piazza and Ivan Rodriguez, it would have been cool to see Pedro Martinez. This, no doubt, would be a huge Pedro Martinez card if it would have been issued. The other player is Jim Thome. Jim Thome played both in 91 and 92, and 2 seasons combined, he had over 200 at-bats. Not a lot of home runs yet, 3 home runs, 21 RBIs combined those 2 seasons. But to me, it's like he was still a promising young player, and if Topps wanted to lean in with some more younger talent in that set, that these 2 cards would have been something really cool if they would have been included. I think it's still a great set. So it's definitely a set that included a lot of good players, but this would have made this set over the top if these 2 players were in it, because, again, both Hall of Famers and, play from a set that is highly collected and rare and very valuable. And next up, 94 Finest. And again, as I go through the series, this is not a complete series for everyone, meaning that I'm going to do some other updates, and go into other sets, but it's interactive. So, and if you have other ideas of other sets or players that should have been in an insert set that you are sad that they don't exist, let me know in the comments, because I would love to hear everyone's opinion. So 94 Finest Refractors, again, is a big set. It has a lot of great players. It's pretty complete, but it's missing one major card that should have been in the set. It's pretty obvious. In fact, it shocked me when I went back and really looked to make sure this doesn't exist. It doesn't have Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan, which is the biggest card in the 93 set, is missing from 94. Now, he played 13 games in 93, almost 70 innings pitched, was a 5-5 player. And it's even more egregious when you think about it because, he was given basically like the King's, retirement when he left the game. There was tribute sets. There was all kinds of cards made in '94 of Nolan Ryan, including a base Topps card. So it's just odd to me that when you have a '94 Topps base card, that you don't have the '94 finest refractor of a player that was pretty much, at the time, probably the most popular player in the game, or at least one of them in '94. Definitely a guy that everyone was talking about in '94. So really weird that we have a base Topps card, but not a Topps finest card from '94 of Nolan Ryan, and it would have been a huge card. So that makes the '94 finest set even more, I want to say, not as cool because it's missing Nolan Ryan. Next up, '94 Fleer Hot Gloves, right? So this set is one of the more iconic 90 sets because it introduced the cool die cut idea. These cards from day one were really just a cool looking card. It really made the die cuts much more cool, much more desirable. And so this was a set that really took off from day one. And so here is the actual checklist. It's a 10 card set. And then beside each player's name is the amount of gold gloves each player had up to 1994. So from the 93 seasons and prior, this is how many gold gloves of each player in the set. And I will give it bonus points for including players like Don Mattingly, Kirby Puckett, who had 8 and 6 gold gloves respectively. Barry Bonds, Griffey Jr. were no-brainers. But it includes players like Matt Williams, Tim Salmon, Will Clark, Kenny Lofton, who at that time had either between 0 and 2 gold gloves. Now, you could say, well, Ripken, Lofton especially, were really good defensive players, or at least above average. So it's not as egregious. But let's look at who they left out and how many gold gloves they had up until the point of this set. You have Ivan Rodriguez, who had 3 gold gloves by this point, and there's no catchers in the entire set. So that's really, to me, a pretty big miss when you have a set called Gold Gloves in a position, much like shortstop, whose main role is defense and catching the ball. So this was pretty egregious from my perspective that Ivan Rodriguez wasn't in the set. If I just want to look at it from just what the set was designed to do. Hot Gloves. Roberto Alomar, again, 3-time Gold Glover up to this point. There is no second baseman in this set, which we'll come to here in a minute with another player. Tony Gwynn, and I think a lot of people don't realize Tony Gwynn was up to this point a 5 times Gold Glover, one behind Kirby Puckett. Now you could have people say like he was Gold Glove sometimes didn't reward the best players or whatever, but a 5-time Gold Glover and incredibly popular player. I would have taken him over Tim Salmon in this set, honestly, to have a Tony Gwynn card. That would have been pretty cool. Again, he definitely deserved it over a player like Will Clark, for sure, even though Will Clark was probably at that point a hotter player. So in this set, you can see they sometimes took the hotter player or the more in-demand player instead of the actual players who had the best gloves. Getting back to second base, Ryan Sandberg, 9-time Gold Glover at this point, not in the set. Pretty egregious. I mean, honestly, you got Cal Ripken, Puckett, Mattingly. If you got Mattingly, you need Ryan Sandberg. I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, the guy was, an incredible second baseman, Hall of Famer, very popular player. That would have been a player I would have loved to have seen in the set. And then last but not least is Ozzie Smith. Yes, he was still playing in 1994 and 1993. He should have been in the set. If there was any set designed for a player to be in, it would have been this set and Ozzie Smith. So it just was weird to me that, especially with Ozzie Smith and Ryan Sandberg, to leave them out, especially when you have players like Will Clark and Tim Salmon in the set, who could have been easily replaced with Sandberg and Will Clark. And I think you could also swap Kenny Lofton for Ivan Rodriguez. that would have been, and Matt Williams for Tony Gwynn, and you would have had a better set, in retrospect, and it would have made more sense from the amount of gold gloves these guys had all won. All right, moving on to 1996 finest gold refractors. So again, in 96, you just had one type of gold refractor. In 97, you got two. So you got the embossed gold and the regular. So the gold refractors, again, were part of, this set that had bronze, silver, and gold. And the gold cards, I believe, are either 25 or 50 cards per series. So you didn't have, every player did not have a gold refractor. So just because you're in the set and you're a Hall of Fame player does not mean you had a gold refractor. You may have a silver, you may have a bronze, but everyone wants the gold, right? Everyone wants gold. Well, Ozzie Smith, which was playing in 1995, is not in the gold refractor set. That would have been a really cool one, considering how many other gold refractors in that set. Again, I don't have the checklist up, but just take my word for it. There's a lot of players that could have been subbed out for Ozzie Smith. Mariano Rivera, again, great player. I think maybe at the time he was a little bit still, maybe not the player he came to be, but it would have been awesome to have a gold refractor, Mariano Rivera. But here's a big one, Rickey Henderson. I don't understand it. Why you don't have Rickey Henderson or Ozzie Smith or Wade Boggs with gold refractors. In fact, Wade Boggs is kind of crapped on a lot, and so is Ozzie Smith, and to a lesser extent Rickey Henderson throughout the 90s. These guys get ignored in tons of sets. I don't know if Topps just didn't like them, or if they just didn't think collectors cared about them, but Rickey Henderson would have been an amazing gold refractor. People would have loved that card. And I think Ozzie Smith would have been amazing. Same way for Mariano Rivera. I think Wade Boggs, and sorry Wade Boggs fans, may have been okay, a choice that, was more understandable, but still, I think he was a big-time Hall of Famer. And in 96, he was very popular, so he was still a great player. So I don't really understand it. And then, I just mentioned it, moving on to 97. So, 97 finest gold embossed refractors. Again, these are the gold embossed, so they have both gold and gold embossed. So I could just say any gold refractor, right? Both versions. And who are we missing? Well, back to Ozzie Smith, back to Mariano Rivera, back to Rickey Henderson, Wade Boggs. So again, all four players are missing again in both years. And I've looked, checked the numbers. They were also playing in 1996, so they could have all been the set. I believe it was Ozzie's last year. So that seems maybe a little more reasonable if Ozzie Smith was in his final year. But Rickey, Mariano, and Boggs all played longer. And so, again, just odd that in 2 years in a row, all four of these guys are snubbed. Again, Mariano Rivera is more of a stretch just because he was still very young at that time and was still maybe behind Wetland or whoever was the closer for the Yankees at this point. And then, last but not least, is David Ortiz. David Ortiz could, in theory, have been in the set, which would have been awesome, right? If you were a David Ortiz guy, could you imagine what a 97 embossed gold refractor would have been in terms of price today? That card would have been awesome for Ortiz collectors. So again, this isn't to just really, make fun of the set, because it still has a lot of great players and a lot of great cards. But it's, to me, really odd, especially Rickey Henderson, for him not to have 2 years in a row a gold refractor. And then, last but not least, we're going to talk about Fleer Mystique established. So the established set, which I've gone on record and said that it's not a refractor set, guys, even though it looks like a refractor set. It's probably one of the best insert sets ever made. It's just in hand. It's just amazing set. It looks great. It's dual-sided, refractor-looking product. It looks like a refractor. It has the similar qualities. Dual-sided rainbow effect. It's just awesome, right? So this set is probably one of the, to me anyway, it's one of the best, and possibly could be the best insert set of the 90s. Well, you got Ken Griffey Jr. So here's who's actually in the set. Sorry. You got Griffey, Jeter, Chipper, Maddox, McGuire, Piazza, Ripken, Rodriguez, A-Rod, Sammy Sosa, and Frank Thomas. So right off the bat, what you notice is there's one pitcher and Sammy Sosa and Alex. So in today's market, you could say, well, dump Sosa, maybe even dump A-Rod, and you have two slots there to maybe fill with better players. So who do we put in there? Well, we got Pedro Martinez. So we go back to Pedro. You got Randy Johnson. You know, he was a pretty awesome pitcher at the time. Ricky Henderson. Ricky Henderson again. Would have been cool. I get it. He wasn't a home run hitter. And so Sosa made more sense, especially in 99. I understand it. I'm just saying today, we would probably rather see Ricky Henderson than Sammy Sosa in the set. And then Tony Gwynn. I just feel like, he definitely fit the bill. He's a great player. So would I rather have a Tony Gwynn than a Sammy Sosa or Ricky Henderson? I would rather have all four of these players over Sosa especially, or even A-Rod, honestly. But I was going to just say it, over A-Rod. And even maybe Mark McGuire, honestly. Even maybe Mark McGuire. I know in 99 that these were the guys, but today I think I would almost rather have a Tony Gwynn and a Ricky Henderson over Sammy Sosa. So there it is, guys. That's my initial list of sets. Now, I've got some other sets I'm working on. Full of Brilliance, some other insert sets from the 90s that, I think are amazing. The first year for Upper Deck Game Jersey. There's a lot to talk about there, guys. That's a weird set, too. So, give me ideas that you guys think should be in this video. Did I miss some cards from these sets that you would rather have seen that don't exist? I just think it's a cool topic to think about what could have been. And if I'm a retro guy, right, if I'm at one of these companies doing retro sets, this is a clear area to mine. Someone coming out with a new established set that looks just like the set and includes some players who could have been in that set, that would be awesome, right? To go back and redo some of these sets and include some of these players and modern players, right? That's what we're seeing in modern, especially with Topps. So again, these are some sets that, again, maybe they could go back in time and correct some of these errors they made. But let me know what you think of the list. Let me know what you think about this video series and what's your suggestions for future videos. And I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.